Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was a Shinigami. While in the Forest of Death, Orochimaru seals away the Kyuubi. This, however, will lead a new power awakening within the Kyuubi container. If you guys enjoyed this What If, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Neither moved for a long while simply staring each other down. Neji, who had already slid into his taijutsu stance, watched the blonde intently waiting for him to make a move. Naruto himself stood completely still, hands still in his pockets, the bored look not even leaving his face. Deciding to test the Hyuga out, Naruto shot forward before jumping and delivering a spinning heel kick towards the Hyuga's head. Neji blocked it easily and pushed it back before sending a palm thrust at the blonde. Naruto, seeing this, grabbed the boy's arm before flipping himself over it, landing in a crouched position. Moving quickly, the blonde brought his left arm forward, kunai in hand, swinging towards the Hyuga's stomach. Neji, seeing this, jumped back to gain some distance before taking his stance. Naruto stood to his feet before turning to the Hyuga, the semi-bored look still on his face. The blonde simply looked at the Hyuga for a moment before speaking, breaking the silence. "That was a nice warm-up, but you should forfeit, you can't beat me," spoke the blonde, shocking many. Neji himself was livid. This dope, the dead last of his class, was talking down on him, telling him to forfeit. He was a Hyuga, a member of the strongest clan in Konoha. Calming himself, he also spoke, not moving from his stance. "Fate has already declared me the winner, so why would I forfeit?" was the Hyuga's response. "There is no such thing as fate. Only cowards, weaklings, and fools would believe in such a thing. You, of course, are all three of these," said Naruto in return, his hands coming out of his pockets. Neji's eyes narrowed and his body tensed hearing this. Naruto, seeing this, inwardly smirked. Now he would go for the kill. "I mean, why else would you have to try to mentally break someone before fighting other than being either a coward or a weakling?" finished the blonde. Neji, hearing this, launched himself forward, rage in his eyes causing Naruto to inwardly grin at his plan working. Neji rushed forward, sending a palm strike out at the blonde. Naruto, seeing it coming, simply sidestepped, avoiding it completely. Neji, however, kept pushing the attack, his hands moving as blurs. Naruto, however, simply kept dodging around the attacks. Naruto was inwardly grinning, he could keep this up all day. Neji, on the other hand, he knew couldn't last like this too long. No one could win against him when it came to stamina anyway, especially when the attacks were as sloppy as this. Jumping back, he saw the Hyuga come to a stop and smirked. "Don't tell me this is all the great Hyuga Neji can do," spoke the blonde, smirk not leaving his face. Stands, most people watching the match were in shock. In the beginning, many had thought the Uzumaki was crazy, rushing at the Hyuga head-on. The older shinobi in the arena who had heard of the Uzumaki's skill in the past were impressed, especially since the blonde hadn't shown any of his skill in years except when pulling pranks. The ones who had written the rumors off, however, were seeing that they held more truth than they believed. The two examiners were impressed with the blonde. They, like everyone else that didn't know the blonde, and some that did, had assumed he was an idiot. What they saw, however, was completely different. Like most Leaf Nin, they knew the Hyuga clan was obsessed with fate. They were just surprised the blonde had used that to his advantage. Hayashi was also surprised with this turn of events. He couldn't believe it took that little effort to make Neji lose his temper. He could also see the angrier the boy became, the sloppier his movements became. He had to give Naruto some credit, the boy had done his homework. Even still, he was surprised by how the blonde was taunting the boy. But then again, considering the extent of Hinata's injuries, he shouldn't have been. Especially considering how close the two were. He quickly shook himself from his thoughts before focusing back on the fight. Arena. Naruto observed the Hyuga boy quietly as he panted. After a moment, the smirk left his face before the bored look returned. Neji scowled, seeing the look on the blonde's face before dashing forward once again. He approached quickly, once more aiming a palm thrust. Naruto, seeing it coming, waiting until the last second before catching the boy's wrist with his left hand and delivering a punch to the Hyuga's jaw with the right. Neji staggered back from the blow and looked up just in time to catch an elbow to the face. Naruto watched him stagger back for a moment and shook his head. Neji spat out some blood before forcing himself to calm down. Figuring out his anger was clouding his judgment, the Hyuga took a few deep breaths before settling back into his stance. Naruto, seeing this, grinned before speaking. "Well, looks like you're ready to get serious. In that case, so will I," finished the blonde. With that said, the blonde removed the trench coat before taking it in his right hand and tossing it aside. Once that was done, the blonde's hands formed a few quick seals before he called out, "Katan, Gukaki no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grand Fireball Technique," sending a fireball towards the Hyuga. Neji dodged to the side and looked just in time to see a kunai heading towards him. He paled, however, when the single kunai turning to 50. It was at that moment chakra surrounded the Hyuga before he started to spin, calling out, "Hakushukaten, Divination Whirl." The chakra formed a shield around the Hyuga which deflected each of the kunai. Stands, Hayashi, Hinata, and Hanabi were each in shock seeing the move Neji did. The Katen was a Hyuga clan technique reserved for main house members. As such, they knew no one would teach it to Neji, which meant he learned it on his own. Such talent wasted on the branch house, thought Hayashi with a scowl. Arena, Naruto was not happy at the moment. Having known about the Katen himself, he was also shocked seeing Neji pull it off. Neji, seeing this, had taken advantage of this, and used that time to close off the blonde's tenketsu. The results of this were Naruto ending up on his back, not able to use any chakra. Staggering to his feet, the blonde glared at the Hyuga boy fiercely. "You're gonna pay for that," snarled the blonde. "Oh, and what are you going to do? I've closed off your tenketsu, meaning you can no longer use any chakra to fight," said the Hyuga, looking at the blonde coldly. "Like I care. I told you before you had an ass kicking coming," said the blonde. "Besides, I don't need chakra to handle someone like you. You're nothing but a coward, living in the past and blaming others and fate for your problems," finished the blonde. "What would someone like you know?" said Neji. With that, he launched into his rant about the Hyuga's so-called fate of hatred, Hinata's kidnapping, and his father's death. At the end of his rant, he finally noticed Naruto staring at him in boredom once again. "Is that all?" questioned the blonde in boredom. "If that's so, then it's nothing I haven't heard before. I've lived my life on my own, without any aid from anyone except the old man all my life, so don't expect any pity from me," he finished coldly. Neji said nothing before launching himself forward towards the blonde. Striking out with a palm thrust, he was surprised to hit nothing but air. His surprise cost him, however, as he was hit with an elbow to the back of his head, making him stumble forward. Turning around, the Hyuga saw Naruto standing casually back, still turned to him. "Did you know, Neji," spoke the blonde while turning, "that the human body can use more than just chakra?" finished the blonde. Stands, Hitsuguya was in the stands watching the match by all the rookies and Tenten who didn't make it to the tournament. He had actually been rather bored with the match, having known Naruto was still playing around, though he was surprised at the techniques the two used. He was even more surprised when the Hyuga boy managed to cut Naruto off from his chakra. However, he couldn't hold back his smirk when he noticed Naruto's Ryatsu was starting to be released. "Well, you're finally getting serious, Naruto. Now I can see what you're made of," thought the 10th Division captain. "This is going to be good," he spoke up, causing quite a few people to glance at him. "Arena, as you know, chakra is made out of a combination of spiritual and physical energy. Some people likely can only use one, these, his being physical energy. I, however, am different since I can use my spirit energy separately. As I said, I don't need chakra to beat the shit out of someone like you," finished the blonde before a blue aura surrounded him. With that, the blonde blurred forward before burying his fist into the Hyuga's stomach, causing him to lurch forward. Naruto wasted no time before grabbing his hair and bashing the boy's face into his knee. Releasing the hold, he watched as the Hyuga staggered backwards. Looking up with his Byakugan now activated, the Hyuga locked eyes with the slit blue ones of the Uzumaki. Naruto flexed his hands before they turned to claws and he blurred forward. Neji felt the claws before he even saw them. Then the blonde appeared behind him, one of his hands bloody, and Neji fell backwards with 4 slash marks showing on his chest. "How?" the Hyuga gasped out. "Simple, you were so confident you'd already won. All I had to do was let you keep yapping while I released my spirit energy, which I knew you could neither see or sense." He paused, then continued. "You should thank Hinata. Had she not convinced me, I'd have probably beaten you to within an inch of your life. Why she cares so much for you after what you did to her, I'll probably never understand," finished the blonde before Neji passed out. Genma, seeing this, smirked around his saban before calling out, "Shousa Uzumaki Naruto." There was a shocked silence in the arena before everyone started to cheer loudly for seeing a good fight. Naruto paid this no attention and simply put his coat back on before heading to the stands as the medics took care of Neji. Stands, the rookies with the exception of Hinata and Ino were shocked, having no idea Naruto was that good. Akamaru was now whimpering in Kiba's jacket while Kiba himself was still in shock. All of them, with the exception of Sakura, who was still in denial, knew Naruto was no dope. The two examiners were both impressed with the blonde's performance. Naruto just might receive the promotion to Chunin himself. Hayashi had taken this time and slipped out of the stands, making his way towards the infirmary. He had to admit that Naruto was far more than he led people to believe. Shaking such thoughts and saving them for another time, he made his way towards the infirmary. It was time Neji learned the truth. Genma sighed. It was time for the Uchiha's match, and he still wasn't here. He shrugged. Sandaime had told everyone at the meeting this morning what would happen if the Uchiha wasn't here in time for his match. Due to the absence of Uchiha Sasuke, the winner by forfeit is Sabaka no Garra. Finished the Saban chewing Jounin. Garra, hearing this, disappeared in a whirl of sand back into the stands. He called for the next match only for Kankuro to forfeit. Hearing this, he called for the next one, Shikamaru vs Temari. Originally, Shikamaru was supposed to fight Dosu from Oto but got Temari due to Dosu's death during the 1-month break. Shikamaru, not wanting to fight another girl, also was about to give up before he was pushed over the edge by Naruto. He muttered something about blondes being troublesome. That match had been a long one. Both genins had been using their brains a lot during the fight. In the end, Shikamaru had managed to catch Temari in his Kage no Jutsu but still had to forfeit due to lack of chakra. After a 15-minute break, Genma called for the next match, which was Naruto and Garra. Neither said anything as they stood glaring at each other. Suddenly, Kakashi and Sasuke appeared in a whirl of leaves, though either vessel moved their gaze towards them. Kakashi spoke, Genma catching both of their attention. Get off the field, the Uchiha was already disqualified since he didn't show up for his match. Finished Genma. Kakashi himself was shocked. He was sure that Sandaime would overlook it since it was Sasuke, the last Uchiha. He was broken from his thoughts hearing Sasuke's protest. You can't disqualify me for something like being late. I'm an Uchiha, such things don't apply to me, said the black-haired boy. The rules apply to everyone now. Get off my field, you're interrupting a match, said Genma. Sasuke looked over and seeing it was Naruto and Garra rushed at the blonde in a rage. He didn't get far, however, as he was knocked unconscious. Jiraiya, who had knocked the boy out, threw him to Kakashi before speaking. Keep your student on a leash, Kakashi. I won't have him attacking my apprentice again, said the Sannin before he disappeared back to the Kage booth. Once Kakashi was gone with the Uchiha, Genma started the match and jumped back as far as he could. Neither boy had heard any of the commotion as they had glared at each other the whole time. Suddenly, killing intent was released from Garra, causing the blonde to release his own. Both boys' chakra levels started rising, passing over Jounin level. Suddenly, Naruto rushed forward, throwing a few shuriken ahead of him, only for the sand to intercept them. Seeing this, Naruto jumped back before creating 4 clones of himself. Each of the clones appeared on a different side of Garra. Seeing this, the red-headed Tsunade made a ball of sand which surrounded him before creating an eye of sand so he could view things on the outside. The clones, seeing this, each pulled out a kunai before launching them at the sphere. They each performed a few seals before calling out Kage kunai no Jutsu. The 4 kunai multiplied to 80 before they each crashed up against the sphere, though they did no damage. The real Naruto, meanwhile, started on a chain of seals for the last jutsu he had gotten out of the Forbidden Scroll. Stopping on the last seal, one which surprised Kakashi and the Hokage, the blonde called out, Raitun, Rariyuda no Jutsu, Lightning Release, Lightning Dragon Technique. The sky darkened a bit as a single bolt of lightning shot down before changing shape into a dragon and charging towards the Tsunade. As always, Garra's sand rose up to protect him, but his eyes went wide when the dragon blew right through the sand shield and slammed into him. There was an explosion that rocked the arena and kicked dust into the air. When the dust died down, Garra was shown getting back onto his feet with his right arm bleeding. This of course enraged the Tsunade, as it was the first time he'd ever bled. In response to his rage, his gourd burst open before turning into sand and covering his right arm. However, before they could continue, another explosion rocked the place, this time coming from the village. Looking over, Naruto saw a smoke bomb go off and the Kazekage dragging Sandaime up to the roof. Not long after, he noticed the place begin to flood with both Oto and Suna shinobis. He was snapped out of his thoughts, however, when he felt himself lifted and thrown into the wall of the arena. Climbing to his feet, Naruto glared over at Garra, his eyes now blood red with red chakra pouring out of his body. Garra stood where he was, his body now covered in sand with the exception of his feet, making him look like a mini Shikaku. Garra launched shuriken made of sand at the blonde, who made a few seals in response before speaking. Hari Jizo, Needle Guardian. The blonde's hair grew long before circling around him and forming spikes, stopping the attack. Once the attack was over, the blonde released the jutsu before charging towards the Tsunade Jinchuriki. Quickly grabbing a kunai and slapping on an explosive note, Naruto charged the redhead before jumping and flipping over him, throwing the kunai right at his ass. Garra in response quickly turned and backhanded the boy in the back of the head, sending him flying forwards. Naruto, however, was grinning and while flying said one word: boom. The tag exploded, catching everyone, especially Garra, by surprise. When the smoke cleared, it showed Garra, while still standing, was badly damaged, which you could tell from the sand falling off of him. He looked just in time to catch a kick to the face that launched him into the air before he received a few more while in the air, followed by a held to the head with a cry of Naruto Renan, before being sent to the ground and creating a crater. Jiraiya was not happy right now. He had known about Orochimaru's planned invasion, so that didn't bother him. He had even left a Kage Bunshin in the village to deal with the summoned snakes that he knew would come. What pissed him off, however, was that he had no idea Orochimaru had actually finished that rival jutsu. So now here he was facing off against the Nidaime Hokage while Sarutobi took care of the Shodaime. Orochimaru, however, was simply standing there watching with that same sick grin on his face. Dodging another water dragon, the Toad Hermit sighed to himself. This is gonna be a long day. Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, and Kurinia were taking out invading shinobi quickly. They were easily showing why they were elite jounin. Guy and Kakashi were currently engaged in a game of who's the better killer. Guy was winning with 20 kills to Kakashi's 19. Asuma and Kurinia, however, were simply picking their opponents apart with Kuriniai's genjutsus and Asuma's trench knives. It didn't take long for the members of both teams 8 and 10 to get into the act. Each team using the teamwork they developed to take out opponents. Sasuke was also getting into the act, sending shuriken, kunai of fireballs at his opponent. Sakura, however, just took a defensive stance in front of Lee since she was basically useless. Everything was stopped, however, when there was a large cloud of smoke that covered the entire arena. When it cleared, everyone saw the gigantic form of Suna no Shikaku. Naruto cursed as soon as he saw it, knowing there wasn't enough room for him to summon Gamabunta here as well. Soon there was another large cloud of smoke that cleared, showing Narutos all over the arena. Each of the Narutos grabbed a kunai before slapping an explosive note onto it before tossing it at the sand demon. Tajra Kage Kunai no Jutsu, Mass Shadow Kunai Technique, came the shout from all the Narutos. Each of the kunais multiplied while flying at the stationary form of the sand demon. The kunais all hit before there was a massive explosion that shook the entire arena. When the smoke cleared, the sight that the blonde saw wasn't what he hoped to see. Instead of seeing the sand falling down, the form of Shikaku still stood where it was without a scratch, its eyes glowing. Garra himself was above the beast, head waist deep in sand slumped over. The beast roared before screaming about finally being out. It was then that it turned facing Naruto with one palm out in front of it. Sand started to curl around the blonde before covering him completely. The sand slowly started to compress on the blonde as he struggled to free himself. Seeing it proving useless, the blonde closed his eyes tightly, knowing what was coming. The last thing he heard was a cry of Naruto Kyuubi. The rookies and Team Guy had both finished off the last of their opponents. Neji, who had joined up with his team, had proved to be a big help, especially with the soldier pills he brought. The jounin were just running over when they heard Hinata cry out. Turning their gaze, they each saw what made her scream, seeing what was happening to her crush. Mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes, finding himself once again in his mindscape. Only this time everything was shaking like it was falling apart. It was then that he felt it, the same power he felt the first time he came here. Following the feeling, he continued to walk until he came to the same room where he had first learned about the seal. Walking into the room, he immediately noticed something different about it. Said something would be the right wall was missing and a set of stairs was in its place. Shrugging, the blonde walked down the stairs and was surprised at what he saw when he reached the bottom. He was now standing atop of the Hokage monument, only overlooking Konoha. He soon noticed that this place was also shaking and falling apart. "What the hell's going on?" muttered the blonde. He was snapped from his thoughts when the ground shook again, this time hard enough to make him fall on his ass. Getting up, he looked around and seeing everything falling around him knew he didn't have time to search this place physically. Deciding to use his senses, he closed his eyes while searching for the power he felt. Once he found it, he snapped his eyes open and was surprised when he found ribbons floating all around him. All but one of them were white while that one was red. Naruto's hand instinctively grabbed the red one before pulling on it. A red box was pulled over to him before it opened, showing the hilt of a sword. The blonde took a breath before grabbing it and pulling. Real world. Both Hinata and surprisingly to everyone Ino had hit the ground upon seeing what happened. Hinata herself was openly sobbing knowing what happens to people who end up caught in Garra's sand. Everyone watched horrified, except Sakura, at what was happening to shock to even move. Shikaku was still laughing while slowly compressing the sand tighter. It stopped however when a golden glow came out of it, and it exploded outward. A golden light shot out of the sand into the air where it divided in two before one part came down in front of the beast. Once it touched down there was an explosion that kicked up dust. Once everything cleared a single figure could be seen. The figure wore a black kimono, a black hakama with a white sash around his waist along with a sheath for a sword. In his right hand he held a sword that was as long as he was tall. Other than that it looked like a normal katana. The hilt itself was midnight blue with diamonds designed in it. The guard, like most katana, was rectangular in shape. He had blonde hair and a pair of slitted red eyes. He blinked, and his eyes were blue in color. It was his eyes that could identify him to some as Uzumaki Naruto. Shikaku got a good look at him, then the sword, and took a step back. Shinigami, stuttered the demon Tanuki. Naruto said nothing before he seemingly disappeared. The blonde reappeared behind the demon holding his sword over his shoulder. Once the blonde turned his head, the beast's left arm fell off, turning into sand. "I'd suggest you get back in your cell, Tanuki, and leave the boy alone," spoke the blonde impassively. Shikaku for once in his life did what the smart thing and dissolved his form. Garra's form was quickly snatched out of the air before he could even hit the sand. The Tsunade seeing this took one look at the blonde before they turned and ran as fast as they could towards Suna. Just then Temari and Kankura landed before them. Naruto looked at them for a second before turning away. Both Tsunade let out the breath they were holding when he did. They did not want to mess with anyone who could scare Shikaku back into his cage. They wasted no time picking up Garra and dashed off. Naruto seeing this turned his gaze and upon seeing the group coming let out his breath. Once he did, he was in his regular clothes once more with the sword now sheathed and strapped to his back. He took one look at Hinata and passed out into blissful unconsciousness. Hitsuguya was surprised and impressed. Surprised by the amount of reaction Naruto had as well as his transformation. What impressed him was that the boy handled his Zanpakuto as if he'd had it his entire life. He smirked to himself at that the kid was interesting. Clearing his thoughts he sighed before and after taking a deep breath changed into his Shinigami form. He was glad that freak Mayuri found a way for them to travel without those damn Jigais. He always hated those things, especially since he always had to take those Jigangans just to get out of it. Shaking his head from his thoughts and using Shuinpa, Flash Step, he disappeared to make his report. Once again the captains of the Godai 13 were gathered, only now 2 more of them were in attendance. Both of which wore the normal Shinigami outfit as well as the white Haori that captains wore. After briefing the 2, Yamamoto motioned for Hitsuguya Toshiro to give his report. The white-haired captain gave his report, including everything that he had learned while he was there. He even included the fight between Naruto and Shikaku and the blonde's transformation. At the end of his report he stepped back into his place in line and Yamamoto once again spoke up. "Tell me, what was the child's name again?" "Hitsuguya Taicho," said the old man. "Uzumaki Naruto, sir," responded Toshiro, earning a small smile from the old man. "So he is still alive," spoke the old man to himself before turning his attention back to the white-haired boy. "Hitsuguya Taicho, I want you to return and watch over the boy and take Momofuku Taicho with you," said Yamamoto. With that he dismissed everyone save one person. Once they were alone the old man sighed before speaking. While this was going on, the Godai 13's shortest captain made his way over to the 5th Division headquarters. It was easy for him to find the person he was looking for as they'd known each other even before they became Shinigami. Once he found her he quickly briefed her on their mission, and with that the 2 were gone. Konoha. It was a sad day in the Hidden Leaf village. Everyone in the village was currently gathered for the Sandaime Sarutobi's funeral service. The funeral service was actually for all who died that day, but Naruto really only cared for his Aji-san, nobody else mattered to him. The Rookie 9 and Team Guy all stood together, though some stood with their parents or clan. Regardless, they all stood in the same section as well as their respective senseis. Naruto himself stood in front of the group between Jiraiya and Irika, who was tending to the crying Konohamaru. After a while everyone walked up and placed a white flower in front of the Sandaime's picture. Soon after that the funeral was over and everyone was leaving. The rookies had taken that time to try and talk to Naruto, only to find him already gone. Naruto made it back to his apartment in no time and plopped down on the bed. He really wasn't feeling well right now. In fact, he hadn't been feeling good all week. This for him was strange, as he'd never been sick in his life. It was even weirder, as even Kyuubi didn't know what was going on. He sighed quietly before closing his eyes and entering a dreamless sleep. An hour later, Jiraiya entered the room in a poof of smoke. As soon as the smoke cleared, Naruto was already up and moving to get dressed. Jiraiya took this moment to look over the blonde's new sword. It was exactly 60 inches, 5 feet, in length and 1 3/8 inches wide. It had a silver blade which gleamed in the light. The guard was rectangular in shape and golden color, while the hilt was blue with a diamond pattern running up it, which was also golden in color. Once Naruto was dressed, he took the sword belt, which was also blue, and fixed it so his sword was on his back. As soon as that was done, Jiraiya grabbed him and they disappeared in a poof of smoke. Not long after that, they arrived at the north gate and walked right out. With Sasuke, Uchiha Sasuke was not a happy person. He hadn't been happy in years, but right now he was beyond pissed. First, he had waited for 2 hours for Kakashi to show up to a meeting he called. During said time, he had to put up with Sakura's pathetic attempts to date him. If that wasn't bad enough, when Kakashi had finally shown up, it was only to tell them that Naruto was no longer on the team. He went on to say he'd been taken as an apprentice to one of the legendary 3. That right there had pissed him off, but not half as much as what Kakashi said next. Since this team is short a member, it's been put on the reserves. You can train all you want, but no missions for a while. Once he had said that, the copy ninja disappeared before they could say anything. Sasuke scowled before stalking off towards Kakashi's apartment to find out what the hell was going on. With Naruto and Jiraiya, they had been walking for a while in a serene silence. Jiraiya had explained that they were looking for Tsunade. Though he didn't explain why, Naruto didn't really care, he just wanted to meet this famous aunt of his. Jiraiya then told the blonde some of the things he knew about her to the curious blonde. Naruto himself had a small smile on his face. It felt good not having to act like an idiot all the time. He had spoken to Kyuubi and found out about that transformation. He'd had at least as much as she knew. All she knew was that he turned into a Shinigami, and he'd been able to keep his sword. No Zanpakuto, he corrected, because he had enough Ryatsu flowing through him for it to stay with him. She had no idea how the blonde got the power, though she theorized that he got it when she had been sealed inside him by one of the Shinigami. Said Vixen was currently resting around the blonde's neck in the form of a small one-tailed kit. The blonde shinobi was broken from his thoughts by Jiraiya, who spoke up. "Alright Gaki, it's time you learned a new jutsu." Naruto's attention immediately snapped towards Jiraiya. "It's an A-ranked offensive jutsu called Rasengan. It was one of Yandame's signature moves and took him 3 years to create," finished the Toad Hermit. Naruto's face lit up hearing this, as Jiraiya had only taught him a few defensive jutsus. Besides that, the only offensive jutsus he had were the lightning attack and the Kage Bunshin jutsus he'd gotten from the Forbidden Scroll. Jiraiya then proceeded to demonstrate how the attack was formed before tossing the boy a water balloon. He then proceeded to explain the first step of the jutsu. Once done with his explanations, they continued on towards the next town, Konoha. Sasuke had finally gotten to Kakashi's apartment building after an encounter with a few 20 fangirls. Upon entering, however, he was surprised to see Kurenai, Asuma, and Guy in there with Kakashi laid out on the bed. "What happened?" asked the Uchiha. Before anyone could speak, the door was thrown upon and a brown-haired, glasses-wearing Jounin entered. "Is it true? Did Itachi really return, and is he really after Naruto?" said the Jounin as he entered, but froze seeing Sasuke there. "Idiot," said Asuma quietly. Before anyone could react, Sasuke spun around and pushed past the Jounin, rushing out the door. After looking all around town, the Uchiha sped towards the gates. After finding some things out from the Chunin at the gate, he shot out himself in the direction Naruto was said to have traveled. With Naruto, our favorite blonde shinobi was currently laid face down on his bed in an inn. He had already mastered stage 1 of the Rasengan, and could now pop the balloon in a matter of seconds with one hand. He was currently working on the second stage, this one involving rubber balls. He quickly shook thoughts of training from his head, burying himself deeper into his pillow. Jiraiya had left as soon as some girl winked at him, though he had at least given the blonde the keys to the room. Kyuubi was currently in her humanoid form, sitting next to the blonde with a frown on her face. As soon as they had gotten into the room, Naruto had run straight to the bathroom and thrown up. The weird thing is that he had thrown up water after that. He had gotten right on top of the bed and hadn't moved since. To top that off, she still couldn't find anything wrong with him, no matter how hard she looked. She was broken from her thoughts when there was a knock at the door. Naruto groaned into his pillow at the sound but didn't move. Kyuubi looked at him for a moment, silently asking why. "Ero-sensei has a key, don't worry about it, Q-chan," muttered the blonde when he felt her gaze on him. Kyuubi blushed at the name but did as he said and leaned back on the bed to lie beside him. Again there was a knock at the door which repeated 2 more times until the blonde finally relented and got up, moving towards the door. Naruto grumbled the entire way towards the door before opening it. "This had better be good, I was trying to sleep," said the blonde while pulling the door open. When it opened completely, he was greeted to the sight of 2 men in black cloaks with red clouds on them. Correction, make that 1 man and a fish. The fish-like man was the taller of the 2. He had blue skin and what looked like gills on his face. The second was the one who caught his attention, however. He had black hair tied in a ponytail and a pair of blood-red fully developed Sharingan eyes. "An Uchiha," muttered the blonde, surprised. "Uzumaki Naruto," said the Uchiha. "You will come with us." Naruto snorted, hearing that this guy obviously didn't get the memo because Uzumaki Naruto takes orders from no one anymore. He thought the last bit sadly. "Itachi," came the screaming voice of one Uchiha, Sasuke. Sasuke wasted no time and rushed forward with the Chidori. The young Uchiha ran at the older one with the Chidori tearing at the wall. The man, now identified as Itachi, watched the boy come impassively. Then at the last moment he grabbed the boy's arm before slamming it into a wall where the boy's wrist was quickly broken. The older Uchiha then proceeded to deliver a knee to the younger boy's gut, followed by a quick jab to the boy's jaw, making him stagger back into a wall. Seeing this, the older Uchiha grabbed the younger one by the throat before speaking quietly enough for only him to hear. "Why are you still so weak, Sasuke? You still don't have enough, you still lack hatred," said Itachi. With that said, Itachi's Sharingan spun before changing, forming shuriken-shaped design. Once that was done, he looked directly in Sasuke's eyes and the young Uchiha felt the world change. Mindscape. Opening his eyes, he knew where he was, the world of Tsukiyomi, which was confirmed by the red moon in the sky. "For the next 72 hours you will watch that event again," came Itachi's voice from all around. And so it began. Sasuke watched as the Uchiha massacre occurred, Itachi killing any who crossed his path. He then was forced to watch as Itachi killed his own parents. After what felt like hours, it was over and Itachi's voice echoed once more. 71 hours, 59 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Hearing this, the young Uchiha did the only thing he could do. He screamed. Real world. Naruto was shocked when Sasuke suddenly slumped to the ground unconscious. Itachi then turned his gaze to the blonde, as did his partner. Before anything could happen, however, Jiraiya appeared with a woman slung over his shoulder with a yellow armored toad that hopped in front of the blonde Genin. After talking for a bit, it was discovered that Itachi and his partner Kisame were from an organization called Akatsuki that was after Naruto. Once Jiraiya heard enough, he summoned up the stomach of a fire toad, aiming to kill the 2 Akatsuki members. Itachi and Kisame had other plans, however, as they both dashed around the corner. A few seconds later, an explosion could be heard, causing both Jiraiya and Naruto to dash in that direction. Once they reached, they found part of the wall blown apart with black fire covering it. "Don't touch it," spoke Jiraiya before the blonde even moved. He then quickly pulled out a scroll before sealing the fire away into it. It was at that point that a scream of "dynamic entry" could be heard, and Guy appeared in a flying kick that connected with Jiraiya's face. After this, Guy frantically began apologizing, stating that he had used his Hidite as a mirror and misjudged Jiraiya as an enemy. It was stopped, however, as Naruto shot past both of them back to the room, with both following behind him after exchanging glimpses. When they arrived to the room, they found Naruto in the bathroom retching up water in the toilet. They also noticed the red-haired girl that was rubbing the boy's back, though only Jiraiya knew who she was. Once he was done, he got up and washed his face before quietly heading back towards the bed. Jiraiya took this time to instruct Guy on what to do about Sasuke, as well as finding out about the attack in Konoha. Once they were done, Guy picked up the unconscious Uchiha and was off in a blur. Jiraiya then told Naruto to pack up and that they were leaving before the manager billed them for the mess. They had packed up quick, basically because nobody ever unpacked. Kyuubi, however, knowing Naruto wasn't feeling well, decided to speak up. "Naruto-kun," she spoke, catching his attention. "I think now would be a good time for you to test out the Kitsune summons," she said, getting a nod from the boy. Naruto simply rolled up the sleeve on his shirt, exposing a kanji tattoo for Kitsune. This was another little gift given to him by Kyuubi when she broke the suppression seal, though she hadn't activated it, or even mentioned it until after the Chunin exam was over with. Using his sharper-than-average canines, the boy bit into his thumb and focusing chakra into the tattoo ran the blood over it. There was a poof of smoke which cleared to show a red three-tailed kitsune that was as big as one of the Inuzuka clan's dogs. "Kyuubi Harem," came the shocked feminine voice of the kitsune, her eyes wide. Kyuubi smiled at her before speaking. "How are you, Taka?" said Kyuubi. "I'm fine. What about you? Everyone's been worried sick since you disappeared, and let's not even mention how your father's been," said Taka. Kyuubi laughed sheepishly, seeing the looks Naruto and Jiraiya were sending at her. "Kyuubi Harem," repeated Naruto slowly as if asking for clarification. "What I said I'd explain sooner or later," said Kyuubi. "Well, it will have to wait until later," said Jiraiya, snapping from his stupor. "We seriously need to leave. I'm not paying for that wall." With that said, they were gone well after Kyuubi went back into her kid form and curled around Naruto's neck again. Naruto himself had chosen to ride on Taka's back as he still wasn't feeling too good. Said Vixen smirked foxily at Kyuubi, who was happy she had red fur to hide her blush. Konoha. While Naruto and Sasuke weren't around, the rest of the Rookie 9 and Team Guy had met up at Ichiraku's. Their topic, of course, was the change in our favorite blonde shinobi. While everyone else was talking, Hinata had stayed quiet. Most didn't pay it any mind since she was always quiet. However, Neji, Shino and Shikamaru, who were the most observant of the group, had noticed that instead of looking anywhere but at them, Hinata was watching all of them intently. "I still can't believe how much he changed in just a month, but somehow he seems more real," said Kiba, earning a chuckle from the stand's owner. Seeing them looking, he explained. "Naruto doesn't get any more real than how he's acting now," said the old man. "What do you mean?" asked Sakura curiously. The old man looked at the group for a moment before nodding to himself. "Most of you have probably had your parents tell you to stay away from him in the past, right?" said the old man, getting nods from all but Tenten and Lee, though Hinata only did it to not stick out. "Most of your parents are shinobi too as well, right?" This time the ones who didn't nod included Sakura. "Well, to put it simply, it's because kids talk too much," said the old man before explaining. "Unlike you guys, Naruto didn't have anybody while he was growing up and had to do everything on his own. Several people had tried to pick on him or hurt him as a result, knowing that he didn't have anyone. Lots of times Naruto would end up in the hospital, but he would always make sure he wasn't the only one going." He paused, then continued. "As a result, he became someone who didn't play around much and wouldn't hesitate to hurt those who would try to hurt him. Children, however, seemed to say and do stupid things a lot of the time. Because of this, you were told to stay away from him, as it was well known how Naruto was," finished the old man. "Wait, I don't get it," said Sakura. "If that's the case, why'd he act like he did during the academy? That was originally only a game he thought up. However, he quickly saw the usefulness in acting like that. After all, shinobis are masters of deception, which is something he excels at," explained the old man. "Brilliant," said Shikamaru, catching on seeing everyone looking. He explained. "Think about it, Naruto has been acting weak and dumb for years, which is the exact opposite of what he is. With him doing that, it takes the spotlight off of him and puts it on someone else." He paused here for a breath, then continued. "Not only that, but he purposely held back in the academy, making everyone think he's weak. The end result is what happened to Neji. TCH troublesome blonde," finished the Nara, mumbling at the end. With Naruto. A few days later, the group of 3, Taka went bye-bye, had arrived in what appeared to be a gambling town. Both Naruto and Kyuubi stiffened when the scent of snakes hit them. Naruto, who was now feeling a little better, quickly told Jiraiya, and they took off towards the source. When they arrived, the scene that greeted them left Naruto stunned. The place looked like a battle zone. The castle that once stood was now nothing but rubble. There was also a sizable hole in a cement wall off to the side. Naruto cocked his head to the side in confusion as another scent hit him. "What is it?" asked Jiraiya. "Kabuto's scent is here, along with Orochimaru's and 2 others, one of which I'm assuming is Tsunade's," said the vessel. After he said that, both he and Kyuubi, who was still in her kit form, stiffened. Then Kyuubi disappeared in a poof of smoke. Naruto sighed at that, mad that the time was up, as he could only keep her out for 3 hours at a time now. After that, he had to wait another 2 hours to call her back out. "Well, it's better than the 10 minutes we started with," thought the blonde. After tracking the scent for a bit, they came across a bar. Entering, Jiraiya took a look around and smirked. "Tsunade," called Jiraiya to his former teammate. When he said that, she looked up shocked. "Jiraiya? What is my past coming to haunt me now?" asked Tsunade. Jiraiya said nothing as he and Naruto sat inside the both Tsunade and her assistant were seated in. Naruto looked them both over while Jiraiya engaged Tsunade in conversation. Tsunade, he noticed, looked like she was in her mid-20s. She wore gray pants and a gray shirt with a green jacket over it. He also noticed something else about her that any straight man would. Kami, she has bigger tits than Q-chan, thought the blonde before shaking his head to clear that thought. And, just in case you're wondering, Kyuubi's tits are as big as Temari's. Looking to the one in front of him, he saw she had short black hair and black eyes. She wore dark blue pants and a dark blue shirt. After looking her over a bit more, he tuned into the conversation between Jiraiya and Tsunade. After listening to their conversation for a while, the younger blonde spoke up. Pathetic. He said it quietly but caught everyone's attention. I can't believe we came all this way for this sad excuse of a kunoichi, said Naruto, shocking everyone. What did you say, brat? Said Tsunade, glaring at the boy. I said you're pathetic. I can't believe Aji-san spoke so highly of you. Tsunade, the greatest medic known to ever live, a woman who could heal any wound and cure any illness but has the strength of a demon, said Naruto before he snorted. He and Ero-sensei had me all worked up to meet you, and this is what I see. The great Tsunade wallowing in self-pity and disrespecting the man that thought of her as a daughter. When he said this, Tsunade's head bowed a little. I've heard about your loss from Aji-san, but you had it good compared to me. And while I can't say I care for the villagers, I can at least say I still care for the village itself, spoke the blonde before getting up and putting his sword back on his back. Sensei, I'm going to head back to the room and maybe train some later, said the blonde, getting a nod from Jiraiya before he turned to leave. Oh, and Tsunade, called Naruto, turning back to face the group. You know that Team Orochimaru killed Sarutobi Ojizen. If I find out you're helping him, I'll kill you even if you are my aunt, said the blonde before he turned and left. Both Tsunade and Shizen sat shocked at what the boy had just said. After snapping out of their stupor, both turned to Jiraiya, who was calmly drinking his sake. Who was that? Asked Tsunade. My apprentice Senju Naruto, answered Jiraiya, stressing the clan name. Tsunade's eyes went wide hearing this. He is also the one Yandame chose, spoke Jiraiya, this time catching both women by surprise. Next morning, Naruto awoke feeling a bit better. After stretching a bit and doing his morning routine, he quickly got dressed. Leaving the trench coat off, he headed out to train. Arriving in a clearing, he did a few warm-ups before starting his training. Knowing he had to make up for lost time, he quickly created a few clones. After they appeared, he smirked before each Naruto started on trying to master the Rasengan. He was still at it when Tsunade arrived a few hours later. Looking around, she whistled, seeing the damage done to the clearing as it was full of craters. Looking over towards him, she had to admit the resemblance between Naruto and her brother Nawaki was uncanny. In fact, the only things different were the hair color and the whisker-like marks on the blonde's face. She watched for a few minutes as Naruto and his clones tried creating Rasengans, only for them to explode prematurely. After a few more minutes of watching, in which the boy cursed more times than she could count, she finally decided to make her presence known. She cleared her throat, and the only sign he heard her was him looking out the corner of his eye. What do you want? Said Naruto, not looking at her. How do you feel about a little bet? Said Tsunade, earning a raised eyebrow from the younger blonde. Later that week, Naruto awoke with a groan, surprised at being in a bed, as he definitely remembered passing out in the clearing. A smirk quickly formed on his face, though, thinking about his last week of training. His training had definitely produced some results, though he was far from finished. Looking over, he saw Jiraiya snoring away in the bed next to him. He was broken from his thoughts when the door was slammed open and Shizen rushed in. Both Naruto and Jiraiya jumped to their feet with weapons drawn as soon as the door was flung open, surprising Shizen. She quickly shook it off, however, and informed the two that Tsunade had already left for the meeting with Orochimaru. Once she said that, both she and Jiraiya shot out the window. Naruto, however, stopped for his sword before following. When they finally arrived, Tsunade was already fighting against both Orochimaru and Kabuto. They watched as Kabuto slashed himself, flinging the blood onto Tsunade, who started shaking badly. Seeing them, Kabuto jumped back towards Orochimaru before smearing some blood onto the snake Sannin's summoning tattoo. There was poof of smoke which cleared, showing 2 large snakes. Jiraiya, however, took quick care of the snakes, making a few seals before placing his hands on the ground and mumbling, Doton, Yomi Noma, Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld. The land under the snakes turned into a deep swamp, sucking them in. Not wanting to waste too much chakra, Jiraiya stopped the jutsu once they were halfway in. Shizen wasted no time, rolling up her sleeve and firing poison needles at Kabuto from the launcher on her arm. The silver-haired Mednin jumped back dodging them, Jiraiya seeing this shot and at Orochimaru. Naruto however at Kyuubi's request stood and watched waiting to see if he'd be needed. Shizen charged at Kabuto with a chakra scalpel in her right hand. She quickly sent out a forward thrust which Kabuto dodged by sidestepping. Undeterred, Tsunade's assistant kept up her assault, turning the thrust into a side slash which was ducked under. Kabuto, who had formed his own chakra scalpel, used this time to sever one of the tendons in Shizen's leg. Shizen, losing her balance, fell to the ground. Kabuto merely smirked at her before moving around towards Tsunade, taunting her the entire way. However, before he could reach her, he was forced to jump back once again, this time barely dodging a kunai that was on course with his head. When he looked up, Naruto was already standing in front of both Tsunade and Shizen, glaring daggers at him. Kabuto nearly took a step back, seeing the icy depths that were Naruto's eyes, but managed to stop himself. "Naruto-kun, how nice to see you again," said Kabuto with a smirk. "Shut up and fight, traitor," was all the blonde said. Before Kabuto could speak, the blonde rushed forward with two kunais and a backhanded grip. Kabuto chuckled seeing this, thinking this would be easy. Naruto was in front of him in no time. Flipping the kunai in his right hand, he gave a side swipe which Kabuto avoided by stepping back. Kabuto came forward again with a chakra scalpel, but before he could swing, he was forced to dodge an uppercut swipe from the kunai in the blonde's left hand. Grabbing his own kunai, he charged forward, aiming to stab the boy. Naruto brought his own up, blocking it, but was forced to jump back when Kabuto swung with a chakra scalpel. Naruto, who was now standing by Tsunade, spared her a quick glance before looking back at his opponent. It was then that Kabuto felt two different sets of hands grab him. Looking back, he saw a clone of Naruto holding him on both sides. Naruto grinned seeing this before bringing both hands in front of him with only his fingertips touching. Blue chakra started gathering in the blonde's hands before forming into a compressed ball of swirling chakra. Once it was complete, Naruto held it in his right hand and grinned at his captive before charging forward. Kabuto saw him coming and went wide-eyed while trying to break the hold the clones had on him. Before he could, however, the blonde appeared in front of the medic Nin and slammed the ball of chakra into his stomach with a cry of Rasengan. The clones held their grip, letting the chakra sphere grind into the med Nin before releasing him. Kabuto went flying along with the Rasengan, which was still grinding against him. Finally, he slammed into a large boulder, and the Rasengan detonated, causing an explosion. When the smoke cleared, it showed Kabuto ledged into the boulder. After a moment, however, he pulled himself out. Before he could do anything else, however, he coughed up blood and fell face first to the ground. Tsunade was in shock seeing this. He had actually done it. He mastered the Rasengan within a week. It had taken Jiraiya months to get, and Naruto had done it in a week. Looks like she lost another bet though. For some reason, she didn't feel too bad about that. Both Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who had stopped their battle, were now looking in the boy's direction. While Jiraiya was smirking, Orochimaru wasn't happy one bit. He needed to take that boy out before he became a problem. With that thought, he dashed towards the blonde, and after opening his mouth wide, Kusanagi appeared. Jiraiya, seeing this, leapt after him, only for the snake to dodge and then push off of him towards the blonde. The snake man was shocked, however, when the blonde spun and quickly drew his own sword, blocking his thrust. His shock cost him, however, as he received a jaw-shattering punch to the jaw that sent him flying. Turning, he saw Tsunade glaring at him, leaking enough killing intent to have even Kyuubi taking a few steps back, even in her room. Orochimaru, not wanting to die, made a mad dash for Kabuto and disappeared once he reached him. It was just in time too, as he had barely avoided Tsunade's most infamous attack, the heel drop, which left a huge crater in the ground. Turning around, she found Naruto on one knee, panting heavily. He smiled for a second before his eyes closed, and he fell backwards, passed out. Next day, Naruto awoke with a groan of pain. His body was sore all over, though it was the ass-kicking he got from Kyuubi last night that got him. Sadist actually calls beating me to death training, thought the blonde with a scowl which deepened hearing Kyuubi's laughing. How about I put you back in that cage? Said Naruto, and was satisfied hearing the laughing stop. You wouldn't really do that to me, would you? Asked Kyuubi, a horrified look on her face. Only if you don't tell me what I want to know soon, Kyuubi Heim, replied the blonde, making Kyuubi blush at the name. Before a response could be made, the door opened and Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Shizen walked in. Before anyone could say anything, however, Naruto shot off towards the bathroom. Washing his face after he was done, he noticed a jade necklace dangling from his neck and smiled before walking back into the room. Well, now it seems someone's bloodline is awakening, said Tsunade, shocking the blonde Genin. Get dressed, brat, we're leaving. I'll tell you everything when we get home, said Tsunade, getting a nod from the younger blonde. Once Naruto was done dressing, the group headed off, walking at a relaxed pace. They traveled for about a week, during which time Naruto got to know about both his aunt and Shizen. Naruto sighed, seeing the gates up ahead, and prepared himself for the glares that were sure to come. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.